Hi. Question for you. Do you ever feel like your prayers are just unheard? Like you've pulled out every stop, you've called all your friends, you've rallied the troops, and you're praying and you're praying and you're praying, but it just doesn't seem like your prayers are answered. You ever felt that way? hmm I know I have. I surely have. Many people are praying for so many different things out there. I get text messages and phone calls for all sorts of things that would just like break your heart. There are people struggling with severe health issues, life threatening health issues, and almost worse than suffering health issues themselves. There are people out there who are watching children or grandchildren or, little ones suffer with health issues that seem to be going unanswered. There's marriages that are struggling, people that feel forgotten, ignored, abandoned emotionally. There are people that are incredibly lonely in a marriage, far more lonely than I ever find myself in my single world. Yeah, just incredibly empty marriages out there. We worry about our children. We worry about finances. They say money can't buy happiness, and I assure you it does not. But a lack of money can make you really miserable too. Really can. We know that, right? So there's all sorts of reasons, from the superficial things to really, really intense things. But when they're happening to us, they can be really intense. And when our prayers aren't answered and we wonder why, we start to thrash and, call in the troops and have friends praying and, pull out all the stops. And I just want to remind you, there's a story in the Bible about the woman with the issue of blood. It's in Luke, like 8:40 something in there. Look in Luke chapter 8 in the 40s. And it's told a lot. This woman with this quote unquote issue of blood. In today's world, that's just talked about really openly on TV. Most children, before they enter kindergarten, can probably recite the name of feminine hygiene products or whatever. It's just really common to talk about, or it's certainly not shameful. But in biblical times, it was shameful. As strange as that sounds, it was like really shameful. Women were like unclean. They were isolated. They couldn't come out in the public. They couldn't go to the market. They couldn't hang out with their friends. They couldn't do anything. They were basically in isolation when they had their period. The first time they had a period, it was kind of a rite of passage. Like there was a big formal, some kind of a ceremony they actually did around it. And the story in Luke talks about this woman who had gone through that rite of passage, and she had her first period, but it lasted for 12 years. Okay, so ladies that are out there, can you imagine 12 years of cramps, 12 years of feeling icky all the time? That would be horrible. That would be horrible and emotionally, physically, spiritually draining. It would be awful. But add to the top of that, she was left alone. She was basically abandoned because of it. She was isolated. She had to be completely isolated. Touching someone else would defile them or make them unclean. Can you imagine? So like even her family, she had to be like in separate quarters, not near her own parents or family that she was with. 12 years. And for 12 years, they say she spent all of her money and all her time and probably her family's money seeking help from doctors who, it only got worse. It didn't get better. 12 years. I'm sure she prayed and cried. I can't even imagine the tears that she cried, because certainly there was slander. I'm sure that there were other women looking down their nose, and men for that matter, saying, wonder what she did. She must have sinned, because surely that wouldn't happen to a godly woman. That wouldn't happen to a godly woman. She must have done something wrong to deserve that illness, to deserve that condition, or whatever it was. She probably lost friends. So it was physical, it was financial, it was emotional, it was spiritual. And there's many, many levels to that story, and the pain and the suffering that she was going through. And she heard that there was this Jesus, this miracle worker that was coming to town, and he was a healer. Like, he'd healed people. She heard whisperings out her window. I'm sure, I'm like imagining this, at out her window or out her tent, whatever it was she lived in, that she had to have heard local people when Jesus was coming, that this was the healer. This is a man who'd perform miracles. Blind people could see. Lame people were walking. Amazing miracles had happened, and he was coming to town. She had to think, this is my chance. This is my chance. I have to get to him. But he surely was not going to come to her solitary confinement. And for her to leave where she was at was really, really risky. Think about it. Just touching somebody, intentionally touching somebody, would be breaking biblical laws of that time. Not biblical laws, but laws of that time. It would be like you would defile a rabbi. If she was to touch Jesus or to lay a hold of Jesus, she would be defiling a rabbi, defiling a teacher. She was so desperate, and so genuinely wanted her healing. She needed her answer, that when he arrived in her town, she made her way through the crowd. And I just imagine her like, all these people. I mean, it had to have been like a mob scene. It had to have been a mob, because, the word was flying around. He was like this rebel. He wasn't like the Pharisee, harsh, judgmental, religious people of his time. He was this man that was full of love and compassion, and he taught God in a way that nobody had ever heard it. But on top of that, he was healing people. So there had to have been like a giant mob scene. But she wanted her healing bad enough to risk it all and not care what anybody in the crowd thought, not care what family thought or friends thought, or what kind of trouble she might get in or what she might lose. She only knew what she would gain if she could just get to Yeshua. So she probably crawled and made and pushed and shoved and made her way through that crowd. And there he was. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine what it's going to be like to see Jesus face to face one day. But she saw him, coming into the city. She saw him. She laid eyes on him. And she made her way through the crowd, probably pushing and crawling. And she got to him, and she thought, if I can just touch him, I can't talk to him. I can't speak out loud what this is, or I would be defiling a rabbi. But if I could just reach up and just touch the hem of his garment, in a Jewish prayer cloth, they have these like tassels that hang off the end. And she felt that if she could just touch that tassel, that she'd break through and find her healing. And she did it. She went through the crowd, and there he was, the biggest celebrity of his era, of his time. And she touched the hem of his garment, and instantly, like they say, like he felt it. He felt the power go out of him, and he stopped suddenly, and he said, "Who touched me?" And I'm sure his apostles thought, dude, there's probably 1 million people touching him, probably everybody wanting to touch him, to have a little piece of this Son of God that was alive and walking among them, this miracle worker. She was scared. She probably hunched down and tried to run away. And he said, no, someone touched me. I felt it. I felt it. Someone touched me. And I'm sure the apostles looked around, everybody looked around and thought, what the heck is he talking about? There's all kinds of people pushing and shoving to touch him. And I'm sure she probably kind of hunched down in that crowd and probably wanted to hide, but realized you can't hide from Jesus. You can't hide from God. You can't. So I imagine that she raised her head, that it was me, and looked up to him for mercy. And the most beautiful thing, he came to her and he bent down to her. He bent down to her level and he lifted her chin up and he said, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. She wasn't in trouble. She wasn't condemned. Infinite grace, infinite mercy in her healing was right there. I'm so blessed by that story. I love that story and I encourage myself with it over and over again. You see, it's really by our faith that we are healed. He heals us. I encourage you to race to your knees, race to the throne of God with your marital problems, with your hopes, with your dreams, with your desires, because nothing is too big, nothing is too small, and he cares about every single tiny detail of your life. And if you think about it, if God can raise the dead, and that's simple everyday stuff for him. Miracles are everyday stuff. Everything's simple and little for him. What he wants is intimacy. He wants a relationship with you. He wants you to come to him with pure, unbridled love and pour your heart out to him. Give him your heart. He already knows the beginning from the end. He does. Run to the throne, not to the phone. Because gathering troops and, I've done it. I'm going to buy party hats and balloons and have a pity party tonight. Have you done that? Yeah, we all have. But ultimately, it doesn't bring healing. But we know somebody who does. And I just want to encourage you to bring your troubles to Jesus. One touch from him is all it takes. He is our healer. And I also want to encourage you with just one more little thought. In the Bible, it speaks about the devil is the one that comes to kill, to steal, and destroy. Okay? So it can mean literally kill, but it means to kill your dreams, destroy your marriage, destroy your dreams, destroy your business, destroy your ministry. Yeah. He comes to kill, to steal, and destroy. And he does not come with pointy horns looking all nasty. He comes dressed like everything you've ever dreamed of. Believe me, I've walked it out. I've walked it out. We all have if we're honest with ourselves. But remind yourself when you're hard pressed on every side, when you feel like everything is coming down on you, you've got problems at work, you've got problems at home, you've got problems with friends, you got problems in your marriage, whatever it is, when you are hard pressed, a thief never comes to rob an empty bank. No. A thief comes to rob a loaded vault. And you are loaded, precious one, because God has amazing plans to prosper you, to give you hope in a future. He does. Trust him. He will be the light on your path. He will light the path for you. He will make crooked ways straight. You will understand each step to take. It may not be easy. Sometimes those steps are scary, man. He's asking us to step out on stormy water, and we don't know what lays out there. I've had to make major steps and major, like, physical, geographical moves in my life that were really scary. But you have to trust God. You have to trust Him. Or you can stay in your messy diaper and complain about it forever, right? Anyway, I love you guys, and I hope that you found some encouragement in this. And I would encourage you to grab your phone or your Bible, however you read scripture, and go to Luke chapter 8. Sure wish I knew the numbers. I really don't know the numbers. It's around the 40s.